Hey there, it's Anonymous Tea, where we spill the tea anonymously. Hello, 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 everyone. Hello, YouTubers. Hope you guys are all having an amazing day today, sending good vibes and positivity, sending blessings and good energy to each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. So today we're talking Love Island UK, and I wanted to quickly recap Toby's Fancy a Chat podcast, because he just dropped it about a couple of hours ago with TYRIQUE Hyde from season 10, and there is a lot that I want to break down about this interview and some nuggets that I previously did not know, but kind of suspected, right? So already, at the time that I recorded this, the podcast already has like 7,000 views on YouTube, and it's great. I think it's going to be Toby's highest viewed interview, because TYRIQUE Hyde is a very polarizing Islander, and to me, one of the top Islanders I've ever seen on a show. And there was a lot of good stuff in there for the simple fact that Ty and Toby know each other, and they've known each other for the better part of 15 years or so, right? It sounded like ever since middle school that they've kind of known each other, right? Whether it was in school, whether it was them playing football against each other's teams, they are very well acquainted with each other. As you guys know, Toby was on season 7 of Love Island UK, and TYRIQUE also revealed that he originally was supposed to be on season 9. He was supposed to be on this last winter season of Love Island UK, and he had turned it down because he was still playing football and didn't want to take any time off or quit when he had just committed to his contract for football. And so ultimately that is when he had, reached back out after the fact, and, then was able to be on for this season. And it sounds like Toby's ex, Chloe, gave, TYRIQUE kind of the contact person of who to contact, producer-wise, because she kept recommending him and saying that he would be really good for the show, right? And so then we kind of dive into, Ty's experience on the show. We talk about, how Ty had told Toby before going in that, he was going to do madness, and TYRIQUE also wanted to remind the people that he used to run Toby's social media accounts, his Instagram and Twitter, when Toby was on the series, and Toby felt that had the social media ban not have happened, that TYRIQUE and Ella would have already had 1 million subscribers, and followers and all of that on their Instagrams and TikToks by now. And TYRIQUE acknowledged, how much TikTok has rode for him and rode for Ella. They treat them like they're celebrities, and he was just very appreciative and grateful of all of the edits and all of the different clips that are of Ty and Ella that are on that platform, because I think individually they're over like 1 billion views in itself, right, of just how popular these two are. And then from there, like I said, Ty was telling Toby that he told him prior to coming into the villa, he thought that he was going to move mad. He wasn't going to take this seriously. He wasn't anticipating, finding a girlfriend and all of the things. And then on day 1, when he came in, and he came in with Mendy, and that was when Maya, was saying, Ella and Ruchi were like the last 2 girls. And Ty was saying, he felt both girls were pretty, but he was hoping that, he was going to get picked by Ella. And then he found out that it was a public vote. And so Ty, was hoping that the public paired him with Ella, and then sure enough it did. And then immediately Ty said he felt a certain way, because immediately Ella was like, we know each other. And I guess he had told Toby prior that he was hoping he didn't know anybody prior to coming on the show. And, Ella went right there, was like, hey, we've met each other before. But even then, Ty still did not know who Ella was, right? Until later on, when she said that she had blonde hair at the time. And so then that's when Ty, then remembered who she was and had already had her phone number in advance, because the conversation would have went well. And so Toby was like, see, you guys didn't even need Love Island. You guys, if you would have just called her a couple months ago, you guys could have been together by now. And he was like, no, he was like, he is grateful that they had these 2 months in the villa to really get to know each other and, have things that are pretty, rock solid between the two of them, right? So it was like 1 hour and 20 minutes of this interview. We, of course, talked about Casa Amor. Basically, Ty went in closing things off before Casa Amor, basically him and Ella apparently were having conversations about Casa Amor, and kind of had a suspicion that it was coming up at some point, but basically they somehow got redirected by production to not think about Casa Amor, and then when you don't think about Casa Amor, they drop Casa Amor on you, right? And so Ty realized day 4 that he really had it bad for Ella. Day 4, of course, was when Sammy came in and took Ella out on a date, and that was when Tyrique told Ella later on after the date with Sammy that he would like to go on 3 dates with Ella, and so that's when I knew. I was like, oh yeah, he's got it bad for Ella. And he was also telling Toby day 1 that Ella was totally his type and all of the things, right? And he was saying, he liked all of the Casa girls. He felt they were all nice. He had a really good friendship with Danielle, who got 0 screen time. Producers, you will crumble for that, because it seems like from the interviews and all the things that she seems like a lovely girl. But basically Ty said once he got to know everybody, he was still stuck on Ella. He really felt that, Ella was, best suited for him. They also talked about his flirting with all of the women. And Ty said, that's just him naturally, but he said that he realized when Jess started to catch feelings and other people started to misinterpret things, like Leah choosing him in a recoupling, that he realized his flirting was too far, and his flirting was sending mixed messages, and the goal of his flirting was just to make the girls feel comfortable, but the girls were trying to turn that into something else, right? And so, as we know, Ty and Ella are a day 1 couple, and Tyrique really prided the fact that him and Ella have never kissed anybody outside of any challenge, and haven't done anything in the bed with anybody, when they were not in a couple together. So that was something, that he also really appreciated as well. And so back to Casa, Ty was pissed, of course, with, Ella coming back with Uzi. He says that he did not see what, people were talking about when Ella saw that Ty was alone, and she immediately dropped Uzi's hand and, was no longer holding his hand. And Ty basically had told Toby as well that he didn't want to be the guy that's standing alone or whatever when it comes to, being a Casa Amor victim, but basically had a feeling that it was possible because of the fact that he had self-sabotaged so much with Ella by saying that he missed the game, by, doing all of this flirting with these women, by, going back and forth on whether or not they should close things off. And, and Ty was just basically saying, I just say what I think out loud, and sometimes that gets me in trouble. He was like, I don't know how to be fake, and all of the things, and I don't understand, because Toby was telling him people kept calling Ty a game player and all these things, and he's like, how am I a game player if I kept self-sabotaging, right? And, you're not getting in an argument 2 days before the final, to try to win the show. If you are a gamer, you would have just taken anything that was said and done in stride and not, gave it any energy or give it any life. But Ty is too honest for that, right? And so then he went into that him, Scott, and Montel, I guess either smoke or vape or something, because he said him and Scott bonded that Scott had brought in nicotine patches, right? So, and that's usually something for people who are smoking or vaping or what have you, that you utilize. So I didn't know that. I would think with them being footballers, they wouldn't do that, but maybe since they are, semi-pro, maybe it's different, as far as, being up in like the majors, and all of that in terms of what the commitment is and the workouts and all of the things, right? Then also, Ty addressed whether or not he was really going to quit the show. He says that he wasn't, but Montel and others said that he was. So I don't know. Ultimately, I'm going to, take Ty's word that he really wasn't going to quit, but he really was pissed off with Ella, right? But he also said that she looked so gorgeous and she was so fine, and he had missed her because he didn't see her in 4 days. But he was also pissed that she brought back Uzi, right? And so then he said also that, he was listening to Ella explain herself, but then she kept saying things that, made him feel like they were not going to get back on track immediately, right? And so, he felt as though ultimately he felt at some point he was going to take back Ella, but he wasn't going to just give in so soon, and he was going to get his lick back somehow, right? And so basically he saw from Ella's end that nothing inappropriate happened with Uzi. She didn't kiss anybody outside of challenges. They didn't do anything in bed together. Even though during movie night they tried to make something happen with the clip, because Ty said before movie night he asked Uzi, did him and Ella do anything? And he says no. He says he tried to kiss Ella and Ella rejected him. And then also he said that he had kissed her on the cheek or forehead at night in bed. But that was it. He never like went in to like kiss her or whatever on the lips and all that, because Ty was like, lip sync's a big deal. And but they were messy with the movie night clip because they were playing kissing sounds during that bed clip to make it seem like something went down. And that's when Ty was like to Uzi, like, what was up? And Uzi was like, no, nothing happened. And then Ella was like, no, nothing happened, we didn't do anything. And so he realized with like their reaction that part of the reason why he was able to take Ella back was because there wasn't anything inappropriate that she did other than bringing back Uzi from Casa, because she thought that Ty was going to bring back somebody. But he felt that, he understands it now. He disagrees with it still, but he understands because of the mixed messages that he was sending, that is the reason, ultimately why that has happened. Also, Ty clears up. Another big thing was when he was telling Whitney to shush the night of the Grafties, with the whole thing with Whitney and Lockton, and Ty basically, defended Ella again and said, Ella, pulled Ty and was like, listen, you got to apologize to Whitney. You can't just be telling people to shush, and like really went to bat for Whitney, and it was not aired on the show. And you guys dragged Ella so hard for that, right? And called her all sorts of names, right? And said all of these things about Ella that were not true. And we have to always take into consideration, you guys, that sometimes the edit is going to show us what producers want us to see, right? And sometimes, unfortunately, production gives into, some of the negativity that is on social media to paint a certain narrative that is completely false from the truth, right? And so then Ty also said that pretty much, he knew he was in love with Ella, when she left for Casa, when Neo came and everybody left for Casa, that he knew he had it bad for her at that point, and was in love with her and was ready to like commit and everything else. And then basically with the whole Uzi thing, he was going to get his lick back. And so he basically talked with Katie, who was friends with Ella at the time, to just, see what was up. And he knew it was going to get a rise out of Ella and all of the things, which is part of the reason why he did it. He knew she was going to say something, but ultimately he realized that, enough is enough, right? That either they're going to get back together or they're not. And he said on her end, she basically ignored Uzi since she brought him back, was sleeping outside on the day beds, was not giving Uzi anything, to entertain, and showed Ty that, again, she was all about him as well, and that she loved him too, and all of that. And so then he talked about how, he was, how he felt, saying that he loved Ella and planning all of that. And he says that he hated the outfit that he wore on his final date, but kind of sounds like he was like basically told to wear that outfit by production or something to match Ella, but he like hated that outfit that he had on. And then he also said too, which I found interesting, which I'm glad he was being transparent about, he thought that him and Ella were going to win the show. He felt like because of all of the things that they have been through and then being a day one couple, that they had a really good shot to win. And but then when he saw, Sammy and Jess's final speeches, he then, started to see, and even a little bit before that they could potentially be a dark horse. And then Ella thought for sure that Whitney was going to win. And Ty thought if they didn't win, they would at least be top two. So Toby got in his little dig because, as we know, Toby finished second place on his season and TYRIQUE finished third. And so him and Ella, he said that they were kind of shook that they were announced as third place, but had to quickly like rearrange their faces because they were on TV. And then once they got up from the couch after their interview with Maya, just really started interacting with the crowd and seeing what the people were saying. They also talked about the song Bad Bee that Ty and Whitney performed at the talent show. Ty says that he wrote everything. He wrote, Whitney's verse as well as his, and they recorded, of course, the entire song. He was kind of coy as to whether or not or when the song is actually going to be released. We've heard rumors that it's going to be released tomorrow on the 25th, but that remains to be seen. Ultimately, that's what a few articles are saying. However, there hasn't been official promotion that it necessarily was going to drop tomorrow, so we'll have to keep an eye out for that. Also, Ty was talking about, the allegations that he was running everything on the show and he was Master Ty and that he was telling all the guys what to do. And he was basically saying, listen, I did not tell these people what to do. He was like, listen, I was closed off with Ella. I needed some entertainment of my own. I wanted to live vicariously through these people. I knew Zach couldn't do anything once Molly showed up at Casa Amor because his Casa Amor was over at that point. So I knew Sammy and Montel, if anybody was going to do anything, it was going to be them. And at that point in time, he was like, I'm not their dad. I didn't force them to do anything. I just gave them, what I would do if I was single and I wasn't closed off or whatever. And, it was up to them whether or not they choose to do it, right? And so then he says, the show is going to edit it a certain way, but he was just laughing at the jokes that, people say Ty says, jump and how high and all of these things. And then also he said that he had a conversation with Sammy and Zach at the very beginning saying, wouldn't it be all cool for the three of us to make it to the finals? And ultimately they all became finalists, right? And so Ty was happy that he went through the full experience. He said once the cameras were off and once the show wrapped, finale night, he told Ella basically he was excited this was all over and excited to get back to their real lives and all of the things. Then Toby was asking how things were going with Ella. He said things are going great. He's happy that there's no longer the cameras and the microphones and everything else, that him and Ella can just kind of be themselves. And he said they've pretty much been together since the show, since the one day she went to home in Scotland. Other than that, they've pretty much been together. She's been living with him basically at his house, at his parents' house, since the show, and said that they're sort of looking for a place to stay, but he said more so Ella is than he is, but basically he feels that he's in it for the long haul with Ella. He said some things that he loves about Ella is that she's not going to sugarcoat anything. He loves that she is very perceptive about things, and that she always likes to kind of read the room and try to read what's happening. And he said that he really is keen on that. Also admits that the final fight that they had right before the final, he felt that it was mostly his fault and that he probably could have piped down. But again, that's just one of his, things of trying to, say what he feels, even if it's not appropriate in that situation. Another regret he said he had was saying bleep Jess, but he said that the clip was taken out of context because he wasn't saying that in particular, but he was trying to explain to Sammy that he was single and that Jess was in a couple with Mitch, and that you should be able to do your own thing at this point because technically you guys are not together, right? Even though he knew that Sammy really liked Jess, he said that technically he was single and could technically, do him during Casa Amor. And then he said another regret that he had was not coming for Mitch at the Grafties when Mitch tried to imply that Ella was jealous or, was feeling insecure or something about Ella and Ty and all of that nonsense with new Ella and her flirting accusations and whether or not he missed kissing her for real. And he says he wished he would have just, left the, Whitney and Locken thing alone and would have just gave the smoke to Mitch at that point. And he wished he would have went harder and defended Ella in that point in time. Also talks about Ella, the new Ella that came in as a bombshell, and said that, she really exaggerated their connection, made it seem like that they known each other for years, and he got mad because, Ella told him that she said that they had all this history, and he was like, all I know her from is we followed each other on Instagram and on Snapchat, And, you know, I didn't sleep with her. We didn't hook up. We didn't all do all these things. We haven't known each other for years. We're not friends. Like, I know of her, but this whole thing where, like, you know, there was this whole thing between them. He was like, I don't know what she's talking about. And he was like, we had like a kiss at the club, but it wasn't even like a full makeout session. It was just like a little kiss or whatever. So then he was also saying what he meant by the term Leda, and how he's saying that and putting up the L. It doesn't mean an L for Love Island or L like you're taking a L or whatever, but what Leda truly means. And so that was pretty much the gist of the interview of mostly what was discussed. I appreciated how hard he was defending Ella. One thing, regardless of whether Ty was on good terms with Ella or not, is that he has always defended Ella. And I respect that, right? Because sometimes people are just disrespectful about females and all of that. And so then they also talked about how out of their friend group, you know, it's not that they don't want girlfriends, but that they have certain standards, right? And so Ty really feels that, you know, Ella is the type of woman that he would want to be with, right? And he says that, and basically put out there, you know, well, Toby put out there that he doesn't want a woman who's not supportive of him or doesn't lift him up or breaks his trust, right? And so I don't know, it was interesting because he kept like trying to throw in little things Toby did, as opposed to I was trying to get back to more things that happened on the show. But I am grateful for this interview. I am grateful that Ty did this interview. There's going to be another interview coming up this Sunday at 7 with Kick Game, and I'm excited for that. Because that's going to be a joint interview with Ty and Ella. So I am anticipating that to see ultimately what comes of that. But that pretty much is the summary of the hour and 20-minute interview of mainly the high points that was discussed in there. So there is that. So let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments. Please do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you're notified the moment I post new content on my channel. And with that being said, I'll talk to you guys again very soon.